So, I am going to be giving you some context about this later. But if you have read Wrath in the Dawn, this is the first prequel before the actual story. I have not read Wrath in the Dawn yet. I decided to start off with prequels. I'm gonna give you some context in a little bit, but first, let's read this description. It started as playful, if barbed, banter before rising to a fateful wager with a most notorious rake, the captain of the guard, Jalal, and forgive my horrible pronunciation, Al Al Khori. Forgive my pronunciation, everybody. Who may have finally met his match in a lovely, if haughty, handmaiden, Despina. But she, too, seems to have met her match in the handsome Jalal. What begins as a tempestuous battle of will and wit in short order becomes a passionate affair spurred on by tragedy of the worst kind. Okay, so let me give you some context on this. So I know that people may not necessarily like this as much, but I at least enjoy if I know I can find these prequels. I prefer reading the prequels before the original stories. Like, if I know that there are prequels and I can find them, I like to read those prequels before I read the original story. I did it with Sarah J. Maas with Assassin's Blade when I was reading Throne of Glass. I read Assassin's Blade first, and then I went directly to the rest of Throne of Glass because I just prefer having that information. I prefer having that information in hand right away. That's kind of like my preference of that. So yeah, that's usually what I prefer to do. But and I don't know if you're technically supposed to read this before the story, or if it's or if it's something that it's required. But based on what I I'm seeing, I don't think it'll be super required, but we'll see. I guess my prediction is that. So the Moth and the Flame is definitely struck me as interesting when I started. Now, I am someone who loves YA books. I know that YA literature is usually looked down upon a lot, mainly because it's read by teenage girls. It seems everything that teenage girls seem to like, people just seem to look down on, and YA is no different. I am someone who enjoys YA. I find YA to be comfortable. I think YA is like it's a good comfort category for me. They're a bunch of comfort reads. I have reviewed YA books in this channel before. So, and I've given a lot of them very good reviews because they're genuinely written well. I can't say I'll give a good review of this one. I'm afraid. But I will try to give. There are positives, but it's not the best review I'm going to give. So, no, I don't look down on YA, and anyone who does, I honestly, I don't understand you if you look down on YA. Genuinely, I don't understand you. Like, do you want teenagers to read or not? I don't understand you, and I'm not gonna pretend to. So yeah, just a PSA, because I'm not gonna give the best review of this book, and I do want to make sure you know I do like YA, and I do think that YA is a really great category, and they has really good books. Do I have my issues with YA? Yeah, same issues I have with adult fiction sometimes. Sometimes you get good books, sometimes you get books like Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. So I do have my issues. Of course I do. But that does not mean I'm going to be looking down on YA because that's a thing that happens. No, I I think YA is a really good category of to be in. Anyway, so let me start with some positives. I think the story itself started out interesting. And I also think that the characters also started out kind of interesting. The Despina was a character that was really interesting, but I'm gonna talk about the characters a little bit later. But I do think it started off kind of interesting. I also think that the idea in general was actually really interesting as well. I think the writing was really good. I think Renée Ahdieh's writing is actually really good. I like her writing, or their writing. I'm sorry. I like their writing because I don't know if they identify as female, so or male. So or yeah. So I like Ahdieh's writing. I think they did a wonderful job at giving us really good dialogue and really good descriptions as well. We also got basically very surface level understanding of Despina and Jalal. And that's where my issue lies in this specific story. Now, Goodreads says this is like 37 pages. My book and Bookshare was 41, but who knows anymore. I'm just going to say 37 for brevity. But basically, the story was not long enough for what it attempted to do. And because of that, because everything was kind of... Now, I don't blame this on the story, necessarily. I blame this on the way it was done. But because the story's not long enough, we don't get scenes to actually give us an idea of the actual romance. Because it seems like it's supposed to be a romance. Like, she's supposed to like him. Or at least have some affair and have, like, a passionate affair. Like, that at least he kind of cares about her. And that they start kind of caring about each other, because she starts like feeling like, the heart racing, and like she's definitely attracted, and she's seemingly and by the end it says that she fell in love with him. The problem is that we don't get the emotional beats to say, yes, I fell in love with this person. So because we don't get to see those emotional beats, it doesn't feel like a romance. It kind of just feels like something. It just feels like we're told that they fell in love with him. We're told that she fell in love with him, but the problem is that we, as the reader, we don't even get to see it. It seems like the author tried to do a slow burn romance, and I just can't see the romance because of the fact that there were no emotional beats. There was just like a first kiss, and they kissed, and apparently she fell in love with him by the end. There were no emotional beats to prove that. And the other issue is that because the character development in the story is so surface level, Jalal and Despina don't feel like characters as much. From Despina, all we really know is that I guess that she never met her dad, definitely, and that her mother had like an affair, and she was the mistress of a guy that didn't even recognize her, Despina, as a daughter, and that Despina does not want the same thing as her mother, so she's just like, I'm gonna work in the palace, and she was supposed to be the new queen's handmaiden, but the queen has her own servants, so she's kind of just there and just delivering certain things, but she's not able to, she wasn't taken into the queen's confidence and stuff like that, which hit her pride. Another thing is that because of the description of this book, it's supposed to say that an affair was brought after a tragedy which occurred at the end, which occurs way too late into the story. So this tragedy idea to bring up an affair doesn't make any sense. They've definitely shared, apparently they shared kisses, which we don't get to see. We only see the first kiss, and we don't get to see more scenes besides the challenge or anything. We don't get to see scenes that develop them even as friends. So we don't get to see them develop as friends, and we definitely don't get to see them develop as characters, and we definitely don't get to see them develop as, I guess, romantic partners or even sexual partners as much. Like, we don't get to see the agreement. We don't get to see any of that. Now, I am someone who believes that show and tell in writing is something that is at the discretion of the writer. I believe that show and tell is very heavily emphasized in writing, but that writing, about that show and tell, I genuinely believe as a writer that it's very much a stylistic choice. This is my opinion. I'm not even pretending to be a writing teacher. I think you should be able to tell what you need to tell, but I also think that even though I believe this on show and tell, that it's kind of like a stylistic choice, and that it's at the writer's discretion what she wants to show, I think there are certain things that do need to be shown, and I think there needs to be a balance of show and tell in order for certain things to make sense. And what the author here does is skip emotional beats that would make sense in their relationship. So we don't get to see that the relationship develop. Thus, we are to believe that it is what it is. And because there is no balance, there are scenes that suffer, especially at the end. There's one specific scene I like that could have been really impactful, and I'm gonna read this for you kind of out of context, because I think this is a scene that could have been well done if the emotional beats were not skipped. So I'm gonna start from here. Another moment passed in stilted silence. Sighing, Despina turned away. "Come in," a gruff voice said from beyond the doors. This time, Despina did hesitate. The voice within sounded nothing like the one she knew. When Despina tried the handle, she found it unlocked. It scraped open, the sound cracking through the ominous silence. It was pitch dark inside the chamber, save for the light from her single taper. Jalal was seated on the stone floor, his head against the wall. He said nothing. He did not even glance in her direction. Despina wavered only a moment more before she moved toward him. "Jalal?" His head turned toward hers, agonizingly slow. Even in the low light, his haunted expression brought her to his side in an instant. "You're here," he said. "No, you're here," he said in a barely audible voice. "You're here." She crouched beside him and lifted the taper to his face, soothing phrases collecting on her tongue, and her free hand raised to his cloak was stained red at its center. Despina gasped, placing the taper on the stone floor before reaching for him once more. You're hurt." "No." "Don't play the hero," Despina insisted as she began searching for the source of his wound. "You're bleeding." "It isn't my blood." "Then whose blood is it?" He did not respond immediately. "Jalal?" "It's Ava's father." Another gasp. "You killed Ava's father?" "No." Jalal bent his head. Without a word, his face fell into his red-stained hands. Despina sat with him. She brought a bowl of water to his side and removed the bloody cloak in silence. With great care, she washed the blood from his hands. Jalal pulled her close. "Don't leave. Please don't leave." "I won't." So that's a scene. Now, this scene actually I liked this scene, and I feel like this scene suffers because we don't get the emotional background that we need. So we don't get to see this happen, and we don't get to see them develop as characters, let alone partners in general. The banter though was amazing, by the way. So those are my main gripes with this book. I gave it 2 stars. I think I gave it 2 stars. I'm pretty sure. Can I see my rating? Wait. Hold on. I'm in the wrong book. Let me see if I can find my rating. But I am pretty sure I gave this 2 stars because... Yeah, I gave it 2 stars. I gave it 2 stars because there was not a lot of character development. The romance that we're supposed to be meant to believe is non-existent, and the characters are barely existent. So I didn't give it any more. The writing was good, and that's like the main reason I made it a star. Also, actually though, well, no, never mind. I was gonna give this, I was gonna lower the rating for lack of world building, but because this was only focused on them and there was no world focus, I don't think there's a need for me to do that. I think that the world will probably be built in the novel. So we're gonna leave it at 2 stars. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I will be reviewing The Crown and the Arrow next on this before I review Wrath in the Dawn, probably in 2023. So let me know your thoughts on this if you've read it. And if you haven't, do you plan to read those prequels if you've read Wrath in the Dawn? And yeah, let me know what you think. Anyway, until then, consider subscribing, liking the video. Also consider subscribing to my blog, which will be linked in the description. And until then, until my next video, consume stories. Bye.